Today I've compiled 10 viewer favorite fall DIYs for you to get inspired for the season. Dollar Tree came out with these really cool wood rounds that look like they had like laser pieces on top and some wood burn going on. I already did one. Did you see it? Huh? Did you see it? Well, in case you didn't. Believe it or not, I had one or two people complain that it was too difficult. So, I feel like challenge accepted. We are not a one-trick pony up in here. I got more ideas. So we're going to take some white chalk paint, mix it up with a little bit of water, paint a nice thin layer all over this piece, and then grab you a green color pencil. We don't want nothing too complex here. Just pick one. You're going to be able to see that wood burn through this white stain that we created, and you'll be able to see some of wood grains showing through as well. And people, real quick, side note, if you have hand grip strength issues, I want to introduce you to these little foam pieces. I was shown these through physical therapy several years ago, and they're awesome. I picked these up off Amazon. I do have an Amazon affiliate link down in the description box for them for you. This blue one is the smallest one I have right now. So to make an adjustment so this way it fits on the little colored pencil, I'm just taking some tissues and some painter's tape and wrapping it around a section and making it a little fat. So this way that the tube will fit right on there. The smaller ones are a little bit tighter. I am in the process of organizing, so I don't know where all mine are. So I'm holding on to this sucker for dear life, but they do really help with the control and the strength in your hand when you're doing DIY projects like this. So I just wanted to share that with y'all. In addition to this, did y'all know Dollar Tree has these little electronic pencil sharpeners? Because if you didn't, this might be the best $1.25 I ever spent at Dollar Tree. I tell you what, I've bought a lot of things from Dollar Tree. This sucker works just as good as a $10 pencil sharpener. Get yourself one if you don't have it. When I was all happy with the way I colored these in, I then went back over it and did some shading. This is also the part where I would probably bring in some extra colors to create some different variations, but I am trying to keep this super simple. Remember, I accepted a challenge to try and keep this easy, okay? Now, next thing we're going to work on is the decoupage portion. So we're going to grab us a napkin. Again, pick your napkin, okay? Any napkin will do here. I wanted something with a lot of colors to put inside our pumpkin. And for a piece like this, it's going to be just easiest using an X-Acto knife. You can lay the napkin exactly over the section that you want to cut the piece out or trim the piece, and then just run that blade all along that section. It will give you almost an exact cut. Just be mindful of how you're holding the napkin, otherwise it will bunch up on the sides, and slice on away until you have that shape. Then you grab your medium and gently place a decent amount in your little sections of your pumpkin, and then plop your napkin right on top of there. For our sign portion, I'm just going to use this little galvanized welcome piece. Again, Dollar Tree. Thank you, Dollar Tree. And we're going to take some Gorilla Glue and we're going to glue this right on here. If you have a Cricut or whatever and want to do your own little thing or plop a stencil in here, do you. Okay, I'm trying to keep this easy. Trying to keep it super easy. Next, grab some ribbons in different colors, different types, because we're going to make the whole back of this around the edge a giant mess. Well, not a complete mess, okay? I did take the one ribbon I had that, was in a little bit of a pattern in my baby stapler and made these little pieces. I don't even know what you call that, half a bow. And then I took this ribbon and cut it in different ways. And I did the same thing for the mesh pieces. If you can actually make bows and loops and all the things, you go right ahead. I cannot. I am horrible at bows. This is my thing, okay? Messy is my thing, and we're going to put this all around the outside of the back of our wood round using some tacky glue and some help with some hot glue for an immediate hold. At first, I just started smooshing this all over the place. I rubbed and then took hot glue and then just started layering. There wasn't a rhyme or reason or pattern to anything. I put this stuff around here until I thought that it would make sense. And then I grabbed some, I have this like paper stuff all rolled up. I don't even remember where I picked this up. Could have been Dollar Tree. And I cut it into a circle and took some more tacky glue and hot glue to put over the back so you couldn't see how horribly messy this was. And that's going to be it for this piece. I went a little bit sideways with this and thought, I'm not going to use it as a wreath, we're going to use it as a planter. And took some foam board from Dollar Tree and shaped it to match the back, well, the size, the shape of the wreath form. I then went rummaging through everything, found some pretty lace that I have from Hobby Lobby. You can purchase that in a roll. That's the last of it that I have. And then I found these little birch wood slices that are like, have a little piece on it holding the back from Hobby Lobby. I found some paper I haven't had a chance to use, or some napkins. Everything was everything was falling on me. I was like trying to get it to stay. It kept moving. So I'm just starting this by decoupaging the napkin on the top, and I'm trying to make sure it's all even because this napkin was really long. It wasn't like a big square piece. It was like a thin, long piece. And I tried to make sure that I measure that. Now, if, newsflash, I have never Mod Podged a lot of things, and I've never Mod Podged foam board, and it is not forgiving at all. So if your napkin is on there, you're pretty screwed. You're not pulling it back up. It just sticks so quickly and so deliberately in whatever spot you put it. So I realized quick and in a hurry that I had to make sure that that line was exactly where I wanted it. Why did it have to be a wreath form? Whew. You would think it would get easier. Seriously. Dollar Tree is still making high quality wreath forms. People, run, go, get your wreath forms. Almost took me out. Freaking wreath form. Anyhow, more than half the way down, I cut off the bottom and went with just the 4 pieces. You could do this all the way around if you wanted. I felt like I'd have a little bit more security with the, you know, end of our, since this is like a floral basket we're creating with our lace, and I didn't want to waste all my lace. So I'm taking it and bending it around the edge so we can kind of use it to just slide in our little pole here and then go all the way across, and I'm bending it when we get to the other side as well. So this way it just holds it in place on its own even without any glue. For the center of this, because I spray painted that white, so I'm using this Welcome Fall piece and I glued it to a little piece of wood. Once it was all dry, I brought it back in, and make sure you're using hot glue and wood glue, or not wood glue, E6000 or your Gorilla Glue gel to add on this. Now, if you want to switch this out, which was another good idea, you could just get some zip ties and change your back as often as you want. Glue your rope down, the nautical rope that was also in the basket. Glue this down to just the wire frame and then snip the top of that pumpkin tip off. And you could use this all year long. You could change the back out, do Christmas, just, you know, whatever theme you want. It does not have to just be whatever. Use your zip ties and cut that stem off and you're good to go. Now for the top of this, as we got here to this edge, I'm just going to glue the rope down behind. Then that's how I'm going to finish it off and let it dry for a couple minutes before I started adding in stuff. It's going to be my packing for our little floral basket. I had this green mesh ribbon stuff down in my stash, and I'm going to just wrap it around this and then shove some stuff in here. We're going to turn these scrap wood pieces I cut up in different sizes into a set of pumpkins. For the stem, I cut these little square dowels up into different sizes. You could use these, you know, you can grab them from Dollar Tree, whatever, you know, put whatever stems you want. Since these are set, we want them all to match, and I'm painting the backs of all of them black, and I'm using chalk paint and a little bit of water to just spread that out so it's not thick and chunky. Now it's time to bring in our napkin. Oh yeah, we are decoupaging these. Not all of them though, not the whole things, okay? I am not going to bore you. Instead, we're going to take this napkin and use it to incorporate all three of these into a set. If you've never decoupaged a napkin before, it's important to get all of them sneaky layers off the back. One of the easiest ways to do that is just to tear a corner, and it reveals the layers. Usually it's 2-ply. Sometimes if you're lucky, it's 1-ply. And then you pull it completely off. So this way, we're just going to decoupage the top layer. You're in for a treat today, people, because normally whenever I decoupage large pieces, I cut it up and do it in sections. For this one, we're going to do the sides, the front, and not the back, the top and the bottom. So we're going to also want to make sure, see this pretty blue? We're going to want to make sure that that is showing somewhere in each section that we put this napkin out. So we can mix up some colors to put on our little square that we have over here. This way, the front of that little square pumpkin piece that we're making matches the color that is on the napkin. I wanted these pieces to be a little rustic, so I wasn't worried about solid coverage, and I like wood grain showing through, you know what I'm saying? Now be mindful, people, because if you're doing this and flicking your paintbrush near something else that is solidly painted, oh no, sprinkly bits. Yeah, I was just painting careless and free, and the next thing I knew, I was like, there's little blue dots on my black paint. So I said I didn't want these painted, you know, wasn't worried about full coverage. I also took a paper towel and wiped back any excess paint. I did the same thing with this rosy pinkish mauve color, I guess you would call it, and wiped it back as well. This just revealed a little bit of those, you know, wood grains underneath. And then I wanted to add a little bit of distressing with some dark colors just to really tie in all the colors that are in that napkin to really bring our little set here together. For our application, we're going to be using Deco Art Decoupage with the mat and a fan brush. I found the center of the napkin that had a little speck of blue on it and went from there. Because I'm going to be wrapping the napkin around our brick, that's what it looks like to me right now, brick. I found the center of the napkin that I wanted with the blue, so this way that's going to pop and incorporate our little blue block here right on the front. And then I took my little sponge. If you guys are not familiar with me, I like to use little cut pieces of dry sponge to press down on the outside of napkins. When I decoupage them, it will grab excess Mod Podge that seeps through and help prevent additional wrinkling and things like that. I also like to go with a less is more kind of style and do section by section. You, on a project like this, if you want to do the iron-on method, that would work amazingly. That is definitely going to give you the most flawless coverage. But again, I was going for a little bit of a rustic look here, so if there was some wrinkles, lumps, and bumps, I wasn't going to be mad about it. I do recommend you cutting your corners just a little bit, like how I'm doing here, and popping them out, and then just measuring just like you would if, you know, you're kind of wrapping a present. Measure your corners and stuff like that. Make sure that it makes sense. So this way, as you're wrapping your napkin, you're pressing each side down that it's going to cover. You know what I mean? If you just go ahead and try to actually wrap the napkin all the way around, it's going to overlap, and I did not want that. And trust me, when you see the end result, this came out flawless. The seams all met up really nice because you're also going to sand off any excess. And here's our little brick completely decoupage. So this is the only one that we're going to do the front and the sides and the top and the bottom. The back, again, remember, it's completely black. Now for our little pink one, we're just going around the outside with our napkin. We're going to do the top and on the sides. And remember, I'm trying to make sure I'm incorporating that blue, so this way it ties in together. So I am making sure that I am placing it in just the right particular spot. Oh, on a side note, for anybody that wants to decoupage raw wood, I want to let you know a huge tip. The edges where you cut are usually very porous, so you're going to need extra Mod Podge in those spots. Keep that in mind. Once these dried, I went ahead and sanded all the excess off, and I added some of that little wood grain popping through. If you want to paint around the edges of yours white so your napkin pops out more, you go right ahead, but I really wanted this napkin to look like it was blended into the wood grain, and this turned out perfect for me. It just looks like it's melted into the wood. I wanted to get a little artsy fartsy with the leaves. Okay, so I grabbed me a page out of a little Dollar Tree book, and I cut out some little almond shaped leaf pieces. Then I cut little divots inside of the little leaves, so this way it gave it more of an authentic look to look like a leaf. And I thought that would just add to our rustic appeal. And I crinkled it up a little bit too. I was, you know, getting a little rough with our leaf here, you know, trying to just give it some character. And because I'm me, I'm like, let's add some Waverly Antique Wax, you know, to the edge. And then I was like, oh, too much. And it just was too much. Ow! I ripped my leaf. Of course I did. Of course I did. I decided to move on to our stems and also applied some Antique Waverly Wax to them while I had it out. And while they were drying, I brought in a stencil for us to apply a little raised stencil on the top with our wonderful Tim Holtz texture paste. Okay, and it's always a good idea, if it is big enough, to tape your stencils down whenever you're doing a texture paste, because you really don't want anything smooshing underneath of that stencil. And I love this stuff as well because you do not have to do like a seamless coverage. It will have all kinds of textures and different looks and variations throughout it. I also gave our little blue pumpkin some love, and then I attached our stems and our little leaves using some hot glue and some tacky glue. To make sure these look really seamless, I did add a little bit of twine right around where the stem attached to our pumpkins. And in this reveal, they are sealed. I get asked that often, what do I seal over my projects with? A lot of times, if it is a craft like this, and I know it's not going to be in a heavily used area, I will happily take the very medium that I attached the napkin with and use that as my sealer. And I did the very same thing here. I just waited until the next day, so this way the napkin was completely dry and adhered to our We're going to start off by using this 1x1 and clamp it on down into our saw. You can purchase these for 98 cents a linear foot at Home Depot, or grab it out of your scrapwood pile like I did. I cut these down into various sizes, and in case you want to cut them the exact sizes I did, I made 2 at about 4.5 inches, 2 at about 5.5, and the center one is the largest at 6 inches. You can paint these whatever colors you want. I'm using a white, a light blue, a dark brown, which I'm using the Antique Waverly Wax for, and then I'm leaving the very center one just a neutral. I am taking this little extra piece that I had spare laying around in a pile somewhere and putting a little bit of Antique Waverly Wax on that because that's going to be our stem. And to rustic the pieces up, I am just sanding them down with a 80 grit piece of sandpaper. Then it's time to assemble our piece. Now there are several ways you can connect these to get a good bond. I am going to go the easiest route and just toss some wood glue in between these joints, staple it on the back, and clamp them together for a few hours. I do recommend, if you're new to this and you're not fuzzy inside with your dry times with your wood glue, leave it 24 hours just to be safe before you go messing with it. I am super gentle when I do anything with these if I'm only going to come back 3 to 4 hours, but you also have to keep in mind I'm filming it for you. So I only have so many days that I can actually work on these and editing and doing the voiceovers. So I have a light hand after 3 to 4 hours, but some pieces I just don't trust and I still will less at 24 hours when I'm filming. And next we're gonna bring in our stapler and make sure, because here I almost said it again, make sure that this sucker is facing the right way before you go stapling your pieces together. And remember, at this point, even if you're stapling from the back, your piece is going to fold down like an accordion from the front if you do not clamp these together and let that wood glue dry. I've had people say, because they have not seen me hammer it in, but you can see some of the nails don't go straight through. I do try to show you guys all the struggles on a regular basis, but sometimes, because I have so many struggles and things happen all the time, shit happens, right? I have to cut some pieces out, but it does happen to me just like with this. So I just take a hammer and I just hammer them suckers on down and you're good to go. Once your piece is dry, how you choose to decorate is completely up to you. This is the main concept. Here is the little leftover bits that I had hanging out that I thought would make an adorable stem. And I'm taking some wood glue and some hot glue for an immediate bond to attach to the wood. And if I'm being completely honest, there were 4 little stems initially, and it looked a little funny because it was hanging off too much on the center piece here. So I ripped that one off and just going to use the 3. This was still hanging over a little bit, so just to cover that up, as well as I plan on doing this to begin with, I'm taking some of this raffia. Who loves messing with raffia? Because I don't. I hate it. It's a mess. It's everywhere all the time, and then when you cut it, it's, you know, it's a hot mess. Anyhow, I'm just wrapping this around here and creating a little bow, and I do go in with some glue to make sure that this is going to stay on here and it's not going to pop back off, because without the glue it is not going to stay here. And I'm not using hot glue for that, I'm using tacky glue for that. And I'm also using tacky glue to apply our little button on the center of our little bow. Isn't it just so super cute? I can't even handle it. I thought this was just super adorable. And then I'm taking one of these leather leaves from Dollar Tree and wrapping it around the top of our stem, and just love how this piece turned out. What do you guys think? This little scarecrow head we're about to build, I'm taking this 4x4 that's seen better days. When I was learning to cut wood, I made mistakes, people, and this was just tossed and forgotten about in the rubble. Okay, we all got to start somewhere. But today it's going to become a scarecrow, and you can pick up these 4x4s to cut down at Home Depot for $9.88, and it's 6 foot long. And various craft stores also have cubes you could do this with. I'm taking these 2 colors to blend to get our scarecrow pasty color-ish, because to me it's more like a yellowy, old looking color. That's what a scarecrow looks like to me. And then I'm sanding it down to prep for us to be able to paint and draw on the wood. If you are not good at drawing or sketching, get yourself some stickers. You can go to any craft store and buy stickers that are like a face. This is nothing special. I'm just taking a pencil and I'm just kind of etching out what I want to put on here. And then I'm just going to go in with a Sharpie and a little bit of paint and fill the pieces. To create our cap, I wanted to use something different, so I picked this up at Dollar Tree. It is just a table runner, and I'm going to use the very end piece here. It's kind of already like a cone, and you can cut the strip that is down at the end, and it still holds its little cone shape. I'm leaving the back kind of long and fraying around the edges just so it looks, you know, older. And we want to hide the back of the block because it's kind of jagged. I mean, I could have sanded it down, but I'm being a little lazy where that's concerned and nobody's going to see it anyway. And to attach everything, I'm going to use tacky glue. It is honestly my favorite thing to use as a medium when I'm doing any type of fabric. It works. To give our cap, the inside, a little floof, I'm taking some extra fabric and I'm just stapling it on down to give us a little meat in there. And I'm kind of just wiggling our little cone piece around and seeing what works. I did not want this right on the top. I don't want to make it look like a witch's hat. I wanted it to be off to the side and short and wonky. That is the look I was going for. And once I got that into place, I also stapled that down. Between the staples and the tacky glue, this should not go anywhere. I'm going to use these ribbon bits for our scarecrow, like a little, I don't know, wrap around the bottom here. It was not easy. Them staples were in there. So I finished pulling them off camera, and I'm taking some raffia and shoving it down into our tacky glue, cutting the pieces up, and then more staples, adding more staples. So this way our pieces don't go flying anywhere. At the moment I'm creating this, I'm creating it to resell it because I do own a vendor space and fall's coming, and I also have a website, so I do sell pieces there. I was not sure where I wanted to end up, but I knew I wanted to just make sure that I built this little piece so it wasn't going to fall apart wherever it landed if I was keeping it or someone purchased it. And to make sure that happened, tacky glue and staples are always great ideas when you're using fabrics and woods. And I put little buttons over the staples. Look how cute they are. This little piece is absolutely stunning. I love this. What do you guys think of the little scarecrow? For this decoupaged wood piece, we're going to need a 1x10 piece of wood for this, and I'm only cutting a couple inches off. I want the length more so than the height, and I did take a little bit of sandpaper and nip the edges around the front of our piece. For anybody that wants to know the actual length, it is 3 inches tall. And really, you just want to cut it so your little wood slice, we're using an owl, fits on there perfectly. I stained this with Antique Waverly wax. I saved you that. You're welcome. And then we're going to decoupage our napkin onto our little wood slice. You can use a leaf for this. Whatever wood slice you want to put on this, it is entirely up to you. You could also use regular paper if you want. I just wanted to use the napkin, and this little happy fall y'all fit right in there perfectly, so I was super excited to get this going. When you're decoupaging a napkin, you want to make sure you get all your extra layers off and just use the top sheet of your napkin, and then you want to make sure that you apply less is more. I always say this with a napkin. Don't overdo the Mod Podge. It will easily break your napkin. And I love going in with a sponge and applying pressure gently in our small sections that we're doing the Mod Podge. It just works out well for me. It gives me the most flawless finish that I can get without having to do the iron-on method. If you want absolutely no creases, iron-on method is the best. Once your piece completely dries, go around, and if you want to use your burn methods, you go right ahead. I am not always trying to burn my house down, so I like to sand off my pieces. To create a little bit of a depth with our owl from the wood piece, I am tracing around the edges with a little bit of white paint, and then I'm going in with Mod Podge to seal it completely off. I get asked often if I do this, and yes, I do. I always go over my decoupage with another layer just to be safe, to make sure that our napkin is protected. And I can't stress enough, make sure that your napkin is completely dry before you do this part, because if you go in before it is dry, it is possible you can oversaturate the napkin and it will end up ripping. We're going to need 3 different size and completely different pieces of glass for this next project, and one that we can make look like a pumpkin. And we're going to need to use that lid, so I'm just unscrewing it, and then I'm painting it a little bit of a mix of a black and a brown. And you can do what you want, but a little tip, use some chalk paint. Acrylic paint is probably going to pop right off that metal. And no, people, we are not going to be painting this. Instead, we're going to grab some things to fill the jar that resemble colors of a pumpkin. So I'm just taking some orange little bits, I'm taking some potpourri and some mesh, and I'm going to layer it inside the jar. And layer it however you want. There was really no rhyme or reason to this madness. I just put it in spots where I feel like you could see the different colors from all angles of the jar. I also want to do the vases completely different. So for one of them, I'm going to use some burlap, and I'm just cutting a little strip off. If you got ribbon, use that. And I'm going to use a little piece of this nautical jute rope. If you want to use twine, by all means. I'm actually unraveling this so I can use the thinner piece. And then we're going to wrap our little piece of burlap around here. You can glue it on here. I recommend tacky glue if you want to adhere fabric onto glass. It works super well. And then we're going to make a wonky knot. And what I mean by that is we're going to tie it once, and then we're gonna tie it again, kind of leaving a decent gap in the center, and then the extra bits on the end are kind of just gonna be flailed to the side. I'm not really sure what anybody else calls them, but that's what I'm calling them. I see them in the store from time to time with their little decor piece. I'm like, I can make that. Now we're gonna take this little leaf, and you can take whatever you want to pop in here, but I'm going to take this little leaf and a little bit of glue and plop it right inside of our hole. I thought putting a little pearl in there, a little gem, putting a little, they even have like little mirrors, you got little floral pieces. There's all kinds of things you could pop right in the middle of this all year long to just jazz up a little decor piece in your home. But it's fall themed. Okay, it's fall themed. Look, here's me adjusting my wonky edges. But I love how that turned out. It was super simple to do. Our last one's going to be even easier. We're just going to need a thin little piece of twine or 2, how many ever you want to use. We're going to tie it in a knot. And then we're going to grab us some beads and pop right on the edges. What I love about projects like this with these 2 glass faces is we're really just adding some easy accents. If you don't want to glue anything onto these, you don't have to. And you can interchange these out all year long to match with your decor. People, now I want to share a little hack with y'all. I'm not sure about your house and your floral situation, but mine will look like this. I'll have pieces cut up and they are just too short and they don't fit. And I'm like, oh, I gotta buy more florals, or do I? I grab a dowel and then I measure it to size inside the piece, especially if you like the floral pieces that you have and you just feel like they're going to go with whatever it is that you're creating. You can then attach them to the top of the dowel or in the center of the dowel, wherever you want. Take some washi tape that is the color theme that you're going to be using. So this way, when you're looking through the clear glass, it's all one color and it all makes sense. So as you can see here, the top of my florals are that like burgundy brown, and my washi tape kind of matches. And then you just go all the way down your little dowel straight to the bottom with the washi tape, covering up the fact that none of it actually goes together. And I've shared this in my content before that my mom used to work at a warehouse that created wreaths and floral pieces for companies like Macy's and JCPenney's back in the day. And I learned this little trick from her. So in case you haven't seen this $1 mall stuff from Target's Bullseye Playground, let me share it with you, okay? And yeah, it is messy, but you're just going to take a little bit and stuff it on down in there. You can really use whatever you want. It kind of just hides the bottom of our dowel. Next, grab you a cork of some sort. I'm taking this little wood piece here and then 2 green leaves and attaching it to the back, popping out the sides. And then we're going to take our lid that is completely dry, put a little dollop on the center here of glue, whatever kind of glue you want, probably a little bit better than the hot glue that I'm just using for the video. And I'm keeping this. This is actually my centerpiece this year. Love how this turned out. Plop that little piece right on top, and we have us a little pumpkin with 2 accented glass pieces to go with it. People, check out this little pumpkin Lazy Susan I found for just $3 at Target's Bullseye Playground. You can get some good DIY deals for under $5 there. You know I had to bring this sucker home and do something to it, right? Whee! I love when stuff spins. Now we're gonna bust out the wood burn marker. This is really inexpensive. I grabbed this off Amazon. As you can see here, I purchased it quite some time ago and I've used it quite a lot. And in case you're wondering, yes, there is an Amazon affiliate link to it in the description box. It's super easy to use. It's non-toxic, which is always a benefit to me. And really all you have to do is use it like a marker and you heat this sucker up and it makes it look like you used a wood burner. But just the marker alone isn't enough. We're gonna need to call in some friends. We're gonna need some paint colors because we're going to draw a beautiful sunflower on this. Now we got to tape this sucker down so it doesn't go spinning while we're trying to get our sketch on here. And then I grabbed me a round object. Okay, it took a couple ones trying, you know, to get the perfect roundness because I have no faith in my freehand round drawing skills, and just picked a corner. Then I was also going to freehand some petals, and I'm like, hold on a minute. I might have people here that are not good at freehanding. So I was like, let me take it back to some basics because you are here to, you know, learn some things, right? So if you're not good at drawing petals freehanded, grab you a little piece of cardboard, okay? It doesn't have to be a thick piece, a little card paper stocky piece. Lay it up against the section where you want your petal and then try to round it like an eyeball. That's the best way I can describe it. Like do an almond shape. You feel me? And then take your scissors and snippity snip, snip, snip. And make sure you just cut the one end of your almond off. So that way we don't have 2 pointy sides. You just want 1 pointy side. And the bottom part is where you're going to put up against your circle. And then you can just trace this all along the entire sunflower. And everything's going to be the same size. Well, the same shape, because we're going to use this to make another size petal in just a second. So I just took that one edge. I met where the end of the circle was. And then followed around, leaving a little bit of a gap in between so we could create a layer of petals behind this first layer. On the second layer of our petals, I took that little cardboard cutout piece and placed it about in the middle of two of the front petals, pushing it forward slightly so these petals are slightly taller than the first row. Once you have your outline all set, it's time to get down to business. And the paintbrushes that you choose are entirely up to you, but whenever I'm doing a really curvy piece, I'll take a regular paintbrush and slice that sucker slanted. And yes, I know you can get slanted paintbrushes, but it's just not the same of an angle. This just allows me the freedom to make it super sharp. Whenever I'm painting something, I really like to have different variations of colors. So I'll take two, see how I technically am creating three colors here to pull from. Again, if you are new to painting and this is not something that you do very often, just use one color, okay? You can still get this look with the sunflower just using a yellow, and then you can come in and create different highlights with another color later on to make the petals a little bit more defined. You'll see what I'm talking about here. And I do just want to say, I share this in my tutorials or my paint with me's. I am not a professional in terms of I've had tons of artist classes on painting. I basically let y'all know what I've tried over the years and what's worked for me. I'm not the best painter, but I'm decent, and I feel like my information is basic knowledge that can really help even the biggest beginner painter create pieces at home. I really like to not just share the DIY that I'm creating, but really help you have an understanding at home of how, if you're interested in making something that I'm creating, that you're able to. So I try to break everything down as much as I possibly can. For the painting with the sunflowers, as you can see, I did the outline layer in the back first. And whenever you're creating something that goes a certain way, pulling the paint down in that direction is going to help give you that individuality with each piece, like we're doing here with the petals. As you can see, I'm pulling the paint downward. That's helping to create a division between the back layer of the sunflowers and the forward layer of the sunflowers. But I will tell you a little something. If you go to use this burn marker that I did not know before I did this, but you should know this going in, make sure you leave the tiniest gap in between your paint, so that way there is a small amount of wood showing through. This works slightly over the paint, but not as good as I was hoping it to. This was kind of a test project because I got another idea later on down the line. I'm not going to ruin it for you now, but you'll see. And also you can see here as I'm pulling the paint down and I'm going back and coloring it in, why two colors and being able to create different variations of the colors helps impact things when you're creating painted pieces. So here's where I said if you want it to leave the paint just yellow, you didn't want to mix anything, and then you can come back in and do some highlights. So you could completely paint your petals yellow and then come back with a brighter orange and go around the edges like I was just there, and it will give you a little bit more definition as long as you're pulling your paint downward. I colored in the center a lighter color than just a dark black or brown because I'm going to come back in later and add some highlights in there. And doing a really dark color, sometimes when you want there to be dark highlights, it doesn't show through so well. Now it's time to bring in the marker, and we're going to take this and basically go along with the lines, starting with the sunflower pieces in the front, or the petals in the front. Okay, now the lesson I learned is I shouldn't have taken the paint all the way to the edge. I should have left a little gap so that there was a tiny bit of wood showing through, because what I learned once this was completely done and I used my heat gun to heat this up, it didn't look so much like a burn at the ends, okay? It just looked like a brown marker on the parts where I painted. Now, the longer I held it in sections, the darker it did get, but the wood also smelled a little funny, so I was like... And you can see exactly what I'm talking about right here, people. See around the top edges of those petals where it's the wood, where I traced on the wood? It's gorgeous. Absolutely gorgeous. I took a couple different little things like some burlap, put some different color paints on here to add some accents to the center of our sunflower. Seal over this with whatever you want, you know what I mean? I used a little bit of dishwasher safe Mod Podge. Make sure you allow this to dry. And even though the pieces didn't turn out as burned as I would like inside the sunflower, this is a stunning little Lazy Susan, perfect for any time of year, especially the fall. How many of you go to Ollie's? Because I love me some Ollie's. Recently, I found this piece there for only $5.99. I can't make this cheaper than that. I mean, maybe if I used some scrap wood and I found a tiny little glass plate at Dollar Tree for $1.25, but those clips alone, they're going to run me a little bit buying them from Home Depot. You know what I'm saying? So this was a steal to me. And honestly, I feel like it's pretty perfect just the way that it is, except we need to decoupage this plate. I mean, let's be real. It's just screaming for a napkin. Because our plate is shiny, I'm going to use this multi-surface satin to give us a nice prime clean slate layer. Now it's time to bring in our napkin, and I decided to go with something, even though it's fall theme, you know what I mean? You could really keep this piece up all year long because the only saying on it is like grateful, thankful, blessed. And you know, you just tell anybody that has questions that you like pumpkins and to mind their damn business, because you want to keep this up all year long because it's like everyday decor. Okay, now that we're done defending our piece, I took a little bit of water on a paintbrush and just kind of etched out to where the napkin fit perfectly in the center of our little glass piece. If you've never decoupaged before, you want to make sure that you get all the sneaky layers off your top decorative layer. It's going to just allow for this top decorative layer to attach to your medium and stick better. And then make sure you hold on to it so it doesn't go flying off. I'm going to be using DecoArt's Decoupage Medium and a fan brush. I'm a huge fan of fan brushes. If you're not familiar with me, I feel like they can really get in crevices really well and go around the edges and smoosh in extras whenever you're decoupaging a napkin in particular, or some tissue paper, because it's super thin. Now, I made a huge mistake here, people. I don't know why I did it like this, but I just did. I put the medium all over the place and then tried to apply the napkin. There was too much medium in certain sections. So what do you think was happening to this napkin? Bunching, smushing, ripping. And I can't have that, not on my decoupage project. So in the trash, this piece of napkin went, and I did another one. But this time I'm coming correct, and I'm going back to my less is more whenever it comes to decoupaging a napkin method. I found the center, and then I made us a nice little line with our fan brush. Put a little bit of Mod Podge on here, and then I just tappity tap that sucker with my finger, making sure it was down in place, and then proceeded. And see how I'm able to take this fan brush and just smoosh it right into the layer that is connected to our plate here. It just goes in so fine of a tiny space that it's pushing that extra Mod Podge, and then you can pull some out. It doesn't allow a lot of saturation to the napkin that is not attached to the plate. Whenever I get my tissue paper or napkin applied to anything, I like to put a little bit on the edge of a fan brush and go around searching for anything that didn't adhere to our piece. And then I can smoosh that extra Mod Podge down around the edge and then just apply a little pressure on the top, pushing the Mod Podge out, making sure we have a nice adhesion all the way around. One of the reasons I like to tear my pieces is so when you get to this point and it kind of looks a little out of place on something, you can take some paint and easily blend it in, especially if the background on your napkin is almost identical to the color that you applied it onto, whatever surface. So since we have some white on our background, I took some chalk paint on a crusty bit paintbrush and tappity tap the paint from the outside of the plate onto the napkin all around the edges, blending it in. I then took some black chalk paint, put a little bit on my finger, and went all around the edge. I know our piece had a black rim beforehand, but listen, I had to make sure that it all fit together with my vision. Okay, so that black rim didn't matter. I make my own new black rim. Okay. And I felt like we needed to blend the pumpkins in a little bit on the side where we had too much white paint there. This way it kind of just looks like the pumpkins are kind of laying on top of the white paint. It just looks really well blended together. And that's going to be it for this little update. Not too bad for a piece I found at the store that I can turn around and pop right into my vendor space for a cute little fall DIY makeover. These didn't require any building or, cutting of any kind. They're perfect just the way they are, and you can get them for $1.25 each at Dollar Tree. But we're going to push them to the side right now and take a gander at these little pieces I picked up from Dollar General, and they were only $1 each. I absolutely love the little wood top. They are so high-end looking. You can pop these suckers on their side. You can put them right next to one another, or you can have them facing forward. These are also perfect to put little transfers on, paint, or do stencils, which we're going to be doing. And make sure anytime that you're working with glass, you clean off your pieces before you get to going. I just use a little bit of alcohol on these. We're gonna make some cute little wall decor pieces by attaching these onto the wood pieces. You can use some E6000. I'm gonna use these little adhesives I have laying around. This way I can reuse these pieces later on down the line. I know I'm cheap, but listen, I gotta keep making DIYs for you. So this is how I get creative. If you want them to stay attached forever, use some E6000, a little bit of Gorilla Glue gel, you'll be good to go. These adhesives that give me the freedom to switch it out as I need to. People, I think these are super cute just the way they are, but since it's fall theme, I'm gonna take the stencil and take this distressed texture paste that I love from Tim Holtz. We don't need a lot for this. I love this stuff. It is inexpensive, it is non-toxic, it is super easy to use, and once it dries and you seal it, it is good to go. And it's super easy to make different colors when you want to mix them up and transform it into something other than white. So I'm taking a little bit of the Admiral Blue here and just smooshing everything together, and then simply pressing it right over top of our stencil. You don't need fancy schmancy tools for this. I just happen to have this laying around. But seriously, I love how simple this was to make and how high-end looking it turned out. If you're looking for more crafty fall inspiration, check this video out right here. As always, people, thank you all so much for hanging out with me today, and until next time.